Welcome to Implement GDPR Step by Step with Templates. Over the next 15 minutes, we'll walk through the complete process of building a GDPR compliance program from scratch. You'll see how to assess your readiness, appoint a data protection officer, map personal data, conduct impact assessments, manage consent, handle data subject rights, and respond to data breaches. This overview covers the key steps from the full course. Let's get started. Let's begin with the foundations. The General Data Protection Regulation is the European Union's comprehensive data protection law that applies to any organization processing personal data of EU residents. Before diving into implementation, here are the core concepts that define GDPR compliance. Personal data is any information relating to an identified or identifiable natural person. This goes far beyond names and emails. It includes IP addresses, location data, cookie identifiers, and even pseudonymized data if it can be linked back to an individual. Understanding what counts as personal data is the starting point for GDPR compliance. A data controller is the entity that determines why and how personal data is processed. If your organization decides to collect customer data for marketing purposes, you are the controller. Controllers bear the primary responsibility for GDPR compliance. A data processor handles personal data on behalf of the controller. Cloud providers, payroll companies, and marketing platforms are common processors. GDPR requires formal agreements between controllers and processors that define responsibilities and security requirements. Every processing activity must have a lawful basis. GDPR provides 6 options: consent, performance of a contract, legal obligation, vital interests, public task, and legitimate interests. Choosing the correct lawful basis is critical because it determines your obligations and the rights available to data subjects. Here is the high-level roadmap for implementing GDPR compliance in your organization. The journey starts with building a GDPR implementation project plan. You assess your current state of compliance, identify gaps, and establish the governance structure. The course provides a readiness assessment template that maps every GDPR requirement to your current practices. Next, you appoint a data protection officer if required and create a comprehensive inventory of personal data. You map where data comes from, where it goes, who has access, and how long it is retained. This data map is the foundation for everything that follows. With your data mapped, you update privacy policies, establish consent mechanisms, and document the lawful basis for every processing activity. These documents demonstrate your accountability to regulators. Then you implement processes for handling data subject rights requests, deploy appropriate security measures, and develop a data breach response plan. GDPR requires you to notify authorities within 72 hours of discovering a breach. Finally, you train employees, manage third-party compliance through data processing agreements, and establish ongoing monitoring to maintain compliance. GDPR is not a one-time project. It requires continuous attention. Now let's move into planning. This is where you build the project team, assess your readiness, and establish the governance structure for GDPR compliance. A successful GDPR implementation starts with a structured project plan. First, secure executive sponsorship. GDPR compliance touches every department, so you need a project lead with the authority and resources to drive cross-functional change. Without top management commitment, the project will stall. Next, conduct a readiness assessment. The course provides a comprehensive template that maps every GDPR requirement to your current practices, identifies gaps, and prioritizes remediation actions based on risk and effort. Appoint a data protection officer if required. GDPR mandates a DPO for public authorities, organizations that conduct large-scale systematic monitoring, and those that process special categories of data at scale. Even if not required, a DPO is a best practice. Finally, define the project scope, timeline, budget, and reporting structure. A typical GDPR implementation takes 3 to 12 months, depending on organizational complexity. The course breaks this into manageable phases with clear milestones. The data protection officer plays a central role in GDPR compliance. Here are the key responsibilities defined by the regulation. The DPO's first responsibility is to inform and advise the organization and its employees about their obligations under GDPR. This includes guidance on data protection impact assessments, lawful basis selection, and policy development. The DPO monitors compliance with GDPR, internal policies, and data protection procedures. This includes managing audits, training programs, and awareness activities to ensure the organization stays compliant. The DPO provides advice on when and how to conduct data protection impact assessments. They review the methodology, the risks identified, and the mitigating measures proposed before high-risk processing begins. The DPO serves as the primary contact point for supervisory authorities and cooperates with them on audits, investigations, and consultations. They also handle inquiries from data subjects about the processing of their personal data. The heart of GDPR compliance is understanding what personal data you have, why you have it, and whether you have a legal right to process it. Building a comprehensive personal data inventory requires mapping data across multiple dimensions. The first dimension is data categories. You need to identify every type of personal data your organization processes. Identity data like names and IDs, contact information, financial records, health data, behavioral data from websites and apps, and any special categories like biometric or genetic data. The second dimension is processing activities. For each data category, document how data is collected, where it is stored, how it is used, who it is shared with, and when it is deleted. This creates a complete life cycle view of every piece of personal data. The third dimension is legal basis. Every processing activity must be mapped to one of the 6 lawful bases. The most common are consent, contractual necessity, legal obligation, and legitimate interests. Getting this wrong is one of the most frequent GDPR violations. The fourth dimension is data flows. Map where personal data travels, between departments, to third-party processors, and especially across borders. Transfers outside the EU require additional safeguards, such as standard contractual clauses or adequacy decisions. A data protection impact assessment is required whenever processing is likely to result in a high risk to individuals' rights and freedoms. A DPIA is mandatory for processing involving new technologies, systematic profiling with significant effects, large-scale processing of special category data, and systematic monitoring of publicly accessible areas. When in doubt, conduct one. It demonstrates accountability. The DPIA begins with a detailed description of the processing activity. Document what personal data is involved, the purpose of processing, the methods used, retention periods, and who has access. The course provides a DPIA template that guides you through each section. Next, assess whether the processing is necessary and proportionate to the stated purpose. Then identify and evaluate risks to data subjects, unauthorized access, data loss, discrimination, or any other potential harm. Rate each risk by likelihood and severity. Finally, define measures to mitigate each identified risk: encryption, access controls, pseudonymization, data minimization. Document the residual risk after mitigation and decide whether to proceed, modify the processing, or consult your supervisory authority. GDPR gives individuals powerful rights over their personal data and imposes strict security and breach notification obligations on organizations. GDPR establishes 8 rights for data subjects. Your organization must have processes to handle each one within the required timeframes. The right of access allows individuals to request confirmation of whether their data is being processed and to obtain a copy. You must respond within 30 days and provide the data in a commonly used electronic format. The right to rectification allows individuals to have inaccurate or incomplete personal data corrected. You must verify the request and update the data across all systems within 30 days. The right to erasure, also known as the right to be forgotten, allows individuals to request deletion of their personal data when it is no longer necessary, consent is withdrawn, or processing is unlawful. Some exemptions apply for legal obligations. The right to data portability allows individuals to receive their personal data in a structured, commonly used, machine-readable format and transmit it to another controller. This applies to data processed by automated means based on consent or contract. GDPR requires both privacy by design and privacy by default. While related, they address different aspects of data protection. Privacy by design means building data protection into your systems, processes, and products from the very beginning, not bolting it on afterward. Every new project, system, or processing activity should consider privacy at every stage of development. This includes applying data minimization and pseudonymization proactively and conducting DPIAs before any high-risk processing begins. Privacy by default means that the default settings of any system or service must be the most privacy-friendly option. Only data strictly necessary for the specified purpose should be collected by default. Access should be limited to those who need it, retention periods must be enforced, and automatic deletion should be the norm rather than the exception. The final phase focuses on sustaining GDPR compliance through training, third-party management, and a robust data breach response capability. GDPR compliance depends on people as much as processes. Training and third-party management are critical. Deliver role-based training tailored to each function. HR staff need to understand employee data rules. Marketing teams need consent management training. IT teams need security awareness. And customer service staff need to handle data subject requests. One-size-fits-all training is not enough. Establish formal data processing agreements with every third party that processes personal data on your behalf. These agreements must specify the scope, purpose, security measures, subprocessor rules, and breach notification obligations. The course provides a DPA template you can adapt. Conduct regular compliance audits to verify that policies are being followed and that your records of processing activities remain accurate. GDPR requires these records to be available for inspection by supervisory authorities at any time. Build a data breach response plan that covers detection, containment, assessment, and notification. GDPR requires you to notify the supervisory authority within 72 hours of becoming aware of a breach that poses a risk to individuals. The course provides a breach response plan template and notification checklist. The data breach response lifecycle follows a structured sequence that must be executed quickly and documented thoroughly. Detection is the first step. Breaches can be discovered through technical monitoring, employee reports, customer complaints, or third-party notifications. The faster you detect a breach, the more time you have for the 72-hour notification window. Immediate containment stops the breach and prevents further data loss. This may involve isolating affected systems, revoking access credentials, blocking compromised accounts, or taking services offline temporarily. Assessment determines the scope of the breach, what data was affected, how many individuals are impacted, and the level of risk to their rights and freedoms. This assessment drives whether notification is required and to whom. If the breach poses a risk to individuals, you must notify the supervisory authority within 72 hours. If the risk is high, you must also notify the affected individuals directly. The notification must include the nature of the breach, likely consequences, and measures taken. After the breach is resolved, conduct a post-breach review. Document what happened, what worked, what failed, and what needs to change. Update your breach response plan with lessons learned to strengthen your response capability for the future. Let's close with the most important lessons from the GDPR implementation course. First, data mapping is the foundation of GDPR compliance. You cannot protect personal data if you do not know what data you have, where it is stored, who has access, and why you are processing it. The personal data inventory drives every other compliance activity. Second, every processing activity must have a documented lawful basis. Getting this wrong is one of the most common GDPR violations and can result in significant fines. The course walks you through the decision framework for selecting the correct basis for each activity. Third, data subject rights are not optional. Organizations must have processes, templates, and trained staff ready to handle access, rectification, erasure, and portability requests within the 30-day deadline. The course provides response templates for each right. And fourth, GDPR is a continuous compliance program, not a one-time project. Regulations evolve, your data landscape changes, and new processing activities emerge. In the full course, you'll get the templates, checklists, and step-by-step guidance to build and maintain a sustainable compliance program. That wraps up our overview of GDPR implementation. In the full Udemy course, you'll get detailed lessons on every step we covered today, plus downloadable templates for your data inventory, DPIA, privacy policy, breach response plan, data processing agreements, and more. Click the link below or scan the QR code to enroll and start building your GDPR compliance program today. Thank you for watching. If this overview was useful, subscribe for more IT governance, risk, and compliance content. See you in the next video.